there.
Hi,
We are the
Dyslexia Duo.
Each week, we sit down with amazing people, including top researchers and experts in dyslexia, powerful advocates, affected individuals, and more.
Together, we break down the myths, share real stories, highlight research and strategies to advise our listeners about this prevalent learning disability.
Come join us. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Amy.
So Melissa wants to introduce our very special guest today.
So today we have Dr. Pam Kastner, and I'm so excited to have her. Dr. Pam has been so kind to take this time to meet with us. She and I have been working for months, trying to get our schedules to work together, and she did not give up on me. You know, sometimes it just is so hard to get our scheduling working for all three people that some people might want to say, no, I'm done. I've got too much going on. But no, she did not give up. And she was so kind all along the way, just saying, thank you so much. We're going to do this. Keep in touch. We'll do it. And then when we finally got it done and scheduled, I told her, I said, we stuck with it. We did not give up. We persevered. So here
we are
she
educators.
is. That's right. That's right. So, Dr. Kastner, would you please introduce yourself and what you have been doing with your career?
Well, I've been in education now, which is hard to believe, for 43 years. It just all went so fast. Oh my gosh. And so I've done, as you would expect, anyone who's been doing it for so long, lots of different roles. Started out as a kindergarten teacher, and I still say those were by far the very happiest of my life. And certainly I would still be there. There's a side story, maybe I'll tell you afterwards, about how I ended up eventually out of the classroom, but I really feel like it was a kind of like a God thing. I mean, it was just, I should still be in there doing the hokey pokey, and I would be very happy doing that. But life took a little bit of a fork and unexpectedly. And so I ended up working as a distinguished educator for the Department of Education here in Pennsylvania. I really have a heart for all kids, certainly, but for kids who are the most at risk, those are the ones that they tug at us a little bit more. And so a distinguished educator, I was in the first cohort of distinguished educators for the state, went and supported in our state the highest risk, I'll put that in quotes, schools in the state. And so I left home and lived in a hotel for about 3 years to support schools that with teams, an incredible experience, like a little bit, like a tiny little bit, like a Peace Corps for education. Returned to my school district, but during that process of working for the state as a distinguished educator, I interfaced with Pennsylvania State System of Support, which is really a wonderful state system of support funded through IDEA, through the patent system, and also in our state, intermediate units would support local education agencies. And I was asked to go back and interview potential other cohorts of distinguished educators. And I ended up sitting next to the executive director at Patent. And they said, you should come back and work at the state level. So it took a few months of convincing, but I did go back and worked at Patent for, 15 years. And in the latter part of that, about the last 8 or 9 years, I was a state lead for literacy in Pennsylvania, but worked very closely with our intermediate units and my own amazing team, patent literacy team. Very, very fortunate to work with all of them and give them a shout out. And in the meantime, I did a little bit of this and a little bit of that out in the big wide world and retired.
Oh, you're retired now.
I am kind of. I retired in August. It'll be 2 years, and it seems to have gone so quickly. And so since then, I've been out all across the country, pretty much supporting schools and school districts. I love being embedded in schools long term. I've been, as I said right before we started, I've been doing some work in Alaska now for 9 years with educators there, and now in Vermont, and pretty much a little bit here, there, and everywhere. Back in Pennsylvania with some schools. Back in my original school where I taught kindergarten, I'm back there, and it does my heart so much good. They say you can't go home, but you really can. And so I was just there last week with educators, and some of the teachers are the same teachers that were there when I was there, and presenting at national and international conferences, and hopefully just like you and every educator that goes into education, we go in to make a difference in the lives of educators and children. And hopefully I'm doing that. Besides my family, it's really the only reason I get up in the morning is hopefully to try to make a difference in the life of a student or a teacher. I am married to my husband. We'll be married 44 years
Wow.
in June, which
Nice.
really went fast too. We have 2 kids, Justin and Jessica. Justin married his high school sweetheart, and they have 4 of our grandchildren, Lola, Layla, Leo, and Louie.
Oh, what are you doing trying to call somebody's name? You just got to
Yeah.
That's a
And then
cute
my
book.
daughter-
That's a
Yeah.
cute book.
And as a national letters trader for many years, and letters, changed my life. Louisa Motes, thank you so much, and Carol Tolman, and many others, Nancy Hennessy, and so many. And then my daughter, when she was growing up, she said, when I grow up, I'm going to have a little girl. And if I do, I'm going to name her Lily. So when she got pregnant and she had a little girl, she named her Lily. So it's like, oh, as a kindergarten teacher, we love alliteration, letters trainer, literacy is my life besides my family. And she said, well, Mom, I didn't name Lily because of all the other L's. I'm like, I know, but, it's such a nice streak here. And alliteration, remember, kindergarten teacher. And she said, did you as a strong, independent woman? So I have told the story many times, but it's hilarious. So here, are you ready for all of them? So
Yes.
Lola, 16, Layla, 14, Leo, 12, Lily, 8, Louie, 5, going to be 6 pretty soon, and Daphne. So Lola, Layla, Leo, Lily, Louie, and Daphne. So those 6 grandkids keep me pretty busy. Lily and Daphne are only about 3 hours away, not too far. So, just like most people, family and work, that is not work. We're really lucky when, aren't we lucky when our work is not work? So I don't know. My husband keeps saying, when are you going to really retire? And I said, I don't think I ever will. I think I'll maybe slow down at some point, but it is really purpose driven. So hopefully it's making a difference. So thank you for the time to talk with you today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My goodness. Now we have 3 adult kids, no grandkids yet. We're working. We're not working on it. They're obviously not working on it. So, that's not one day I keep going, y'all, my biological clock. They're like, your biological clock.
Yeah.
Okay, well, your biological clock should be going at this point. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. So, what first drew you to this field of structured literacy, dyslexia intervention? I'm kind of curious to hear your origin story, I guess.
Okay. Well, there's a little bit of history to it too, but honestly, I think as I was saying to you before we started, and I think I mentioned a little bit, I've always loved kids and wanted to be a good teacher, but also very perplexed about what I didn't learn about how to teach reading, to be honest with you. I mean, I grew up in the age of very much whole language with my undergrad and graduate. I went and got all the certificates you could get. I'm reading recovery, recovering. Right. I did all 12 steps. So, reading specialists, I was always perplexed. Those kids that you're just doing everything, you're trying everything, and they're not making the progress that you want them to make. And, I taught kindergarten. I was a reading specialist too. But for me, I'm very biased about kindergarten. I think the early grades, and I think this would bear out that K1, 2, and Diane McGinnis does this as well. These need to be your strongest, most skilled teachers. It's like when you build a house, you build it with a strong foundation. And I think all teachers are very important. Don't get me wrong. But if we don't have really knowledgeable, skilled teachers that are supported as they should be by leadership and the instructional materials and everything that they need to ensure that all kids can read, everyone else has to kind of try to close that gap. And I really think that's what we're seeing across the country. That's what I'm seeing. Certainly COVID had an impact on literacy. There's no doubt about that. But what I'm seeing is like this need that's shifted up at the same time, that we're still trying to shore up the foundation across the country in terms of teaching kids how to read, those early grades of learning to read so that they can read to learn in the later grades. And so I think like every teacher, the kids that stick with us the most are the ones we tried to reach with everything we had at the moment, and we couldn't. And so that's really where it started, just trying to figure out like, what didn't I know? And I didn't know a lot, that's for sure. I always say that, it's never a blame game on teachers, even though we may feel that way. I certainly went through the 7 stages of grief and then some, but, we haven't learned it yet. We haven't learned it yet. And that saying that's been, kind of prolific with the science of reading, which is when we know better, we need to do better. And
Mhm.
I believe that when we know better, we really are and must be compelled to do better. But we need some help along the way. Teachers have a lot of, I think, accountability, but they should have commensurate support for that accountability. In addition to the kids in my classroom that I was puzzling about and trying to figure out, and the kids as a reading specialist that I couldn't figure out no matter what I tried because I didn't know better at that time. My oldest granddaughter is dyslexic. And
Oh.
so it had and has a profound impact on families and certainly did on ours. And so it's very personal and professional. So
Mhm.
it's like the simple view of Pam Kastner is personal times professional is this outcome of hopefully making a difference. And certainly, probably like you, I had a teacher in early elementary who left a profound impact on me, and I've never ever wanted to be anything but a teacher since I was about 8. So it's kind of like a little bit of personal and professional has really converged on
Mhm.
structured literacy. And then when you find it out, you're like, wow, I have so much to learn. It's kind of like that. I think is it called Dunning-Kruger? The more you know, the less you think you know.
Yes.
And the less you
Exactly.
know, the more you think you know. So I keep thinking I know less and less the more I learn. And
Yes.
so I think structured literacy is like that. Learning how your own language works
Right.
is a marvel. It is. I used to think it was crazy, and it's not. And that's what I say as teachers, sometimes we weren't taught about our own language. And so therefore we couldn't teach our own language and the beauty of it and the layers of that language. And really that's what structured literacy is. It's this beauty of our language, the integration of phonology and orthography and semantic syntax, morphology, pragmatics, etymology, all these things integrated together to make this beautiful language that we have that opens doors to endless possibilities when we know how to crack that code and dive into the rich text that we have to read. So I just feel really lucky.
I love that summary. It's a beautiful language. When you think about not just the 5 pillars, and you think about spelling, and you think about background knowledge and comprehension, and how it just kind of all weaves together for skilled reading and writing and full comprehension of language.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hollis.
You're right.
What a beautiful visual metaphor she created. And as you know, she created that initially for parents to help visualize the complexity of the language, but also in a very elegant and simple visual metaphor. So yeah, it's a beautiful visual metaphor, as Hollis would say. So
Yeah, no,
I think
So
that encapsulates it.
So, can you explain then the core philosophical differences between structured literacy and balanced literacy? And we know that there are still some teachers that are using balanced literacy through not knowing about structured literacy, or it's what their school district is implementing still. Can you talk to us about the difference and why structured literacy is the way to go?
I think it's the way to go because structured literacy, and I described like the what basically, I think encapsulated that in terms of just the language systems. But structured literacy is also about the how. All right. And so the how is how we teach kids. I think we all can agree, no matter where we are as educators, that and we want the end result. We want kids
Mhm.
reading with joy and meaning and accuracy and automaticity. I think a lot of it is the how do we get there? All right. So I'll tell you from my journey. All right. So when I was very much a balanced literacy, as I told you, yeah, reading recovery trained. And so I was very constructivist. I loved my kids. I bathed them in words. I had a very print rich classroom. I read a lot of books to my students, but it didn't work for a number of my students, right? And we know that all reading brains must wire the same way. There's no separate pathway for any
Mhm.
human being. And I think with structured literacy, the how we get there is very direct, very explicit, very systematic. When you're a novice at anything, which just gets me back into our discussion a tiny bit that we were having before we started on the instructional hierarchy, how humans learn anything, riding a bike, tying your shoes, learning to read, they go through 4 stages. And this is based on the work of like John Sweller or the cognitive load theory with Greg Ashman or Carl Hendrick, Paul Kirshner. They're the big researchers. Nathaniel Swain, I was just with him in Canada. He's absolutely amazing. So we go through 4 stages: acquisition, building fluency, generalization, and adaptation. So this research was based on Herring and Eaton's all the way back in 1978, but it's just how humans learn. So when you're in acquisition, that means you just don't know anything yet, really. You're just learning something new. Again, my grandson Louis is learning to ride while he is now riding a bike. So when he was in acquisition, my son broke down all the component parts. Here's the steering, the little wheel, the handlebars, and the brakes, and all these things. So you're breaking down the overall skill into component parts, into manageable parts, and you're teaching it very directly, very explicitly, and very systematically. So started him like on a flat surface. The training wheels are on. So when we're in acquisition with any skill, what we're seeking and need to do is become accurate at something, very accurate at it. We might be slow at it, but we're accurate at it, right? So that's the first goal of an expert teacher, to teach you to be accurate with a skill and then to be automatic. And like back to the rope, when you see the rope, you see increasingly automatic, right? Increasingly strategic. And so anything that we're good at, we really don't think about. So one example I often use as an analogy is when you learn to drive, you are initially thinking about all those things. My dad didn't sit me down and say in the car, Pam, you've been watching me drive for 16 years, off you go.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It taught me all the parts. I learned stick shift too, so it made it even more fun. But everything was broken down. There was very direct, very explicit instruction, and there was a lot of corrective feedback that was immediate corrective feedback. And also occasionally when I did something right, immediate affirmative feedback that was specific, not good job, but you didn't hit that car. Like I saw that you moved slightly to the right so that you avoided that fire hydrant or whatever it was that I was maybe going to hit. So for some reason, when we're in acquisition for a skill like learning to ride a bike, learning to ride a car, learning to learn a musical instrument, just very direct, explicit instruction that's very systematic with an expert providing that guidance and immediate error correction and many opportunities to respond, many opportunities to respond so that the expert can give feedback and guidance. That is how we learn. It's how we learn to do foul shots. It's how we learn to do football drills, you name it. But in education, we have maligned it and called it drill and kill. When really what's happening in acquisition is a lot of drill for skill to get a student accurate with the skill. So that means in the early grades and foundational, that means letter names and letter sounds. You have to learn the basics. We have a morphophonemic language, right? And so we have to teach in the way that the writing system is designed.
Right.
Our writing system is designed, it's morphophonemic. And so we're going to map letters and sounds, and we're going to bond those together accurately and automatically to build words, to build phrases, to build sentences, to build text. There's a scope and sequence to that too. It's systematic. We begin with what is most frequent and go to what is least frequent. And we begin with least complex to most complex. It's systematic. All right. So in acquisition, the goal is accuracy. So for me, as I taught kindergarten, that was for kids to be accurate and automatic with letters and sounds because they needed to bond those things together. All right. And so now they're accurate, but they're slow. They are reading a little decodable text, hopefully at the beginning, to give them the practice while they're listening to really rich read alouds that I'm doing to build their language and background knowledge and their syntax understanding. And they come to a word that they don't know, and they should look at the letters and sound it out, but they're slow. They're accurate. That's awesome. But because they're not automatic, they have no working memory. Back to our friends, Greg Ashman and Paul Kirshner and Carl Hendrick and others. They don't have the cognitive desk space left over to gain meaning. We have a bottleneck in our working memory. We can only hold so much. Those are the kids that when they're done reading any text, a sentence, a paragraph, a tiny book, you ask them to tell you about what they've just read and they can't because it's just been so much cognitive desk space. So accuracy first. We don't want kids practicing wrong. Practice does not make perfect. It makes permanent. And so in the acquisition phase, what we want is errorless learning. We want errorless learning. That's why all those opportunities to respond, so we can monitor learning and we can immediately error correct. We don't want anything stored in long-term memory. Once it's in long-term memory, it's there forever and ever. Maybe that's Taylor Swift, ever, 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 ever. I don't know. It's never coming out. So we have to add something into long-term memory that is correct, that will override the incorrect response. So acquisition is a really critical point. I was just in Canada presenting. And it was funny. I did a session on the instructional hierarchy, and it was so interesting because the other presenters too had woven that in. So when we were started chatting with each other a little bit afterwards, they said, "Oh, I think the instructional hierarchy is kind of having a moment here." I said, "Maybe." But Jan Hasbrook was one of the amazing presenters, and she had said, and I hope I get this right, accuracy is first, foremost, and forever. It has to be the first, foremost, and forever. I think there's another act there too. It was she and Deb Glazer that came up with that. So if I missed one of those, I'm sorry. But in any event, she was stressing the importance of accuracy first, right? And these opportunities to respond. And the research shows us when you're in acquisition and you're providing this direct instruction, minimally, you want 3 to 5 responses per minute. So back to your original question, when I was teaching in a way that was more balanced literacy, I was doing a little bit of what Dr. Anita Archer, a dear friend, calls a suicide. I was assuming that my kids were picking up these relationships between letters and sounds. I was not directly and explicitly teaching them. I was exposing them to that in this massive way of print and assuming they would pick it up. And certainly we can see from our NAEP scores for the last 30 years, if we're looking nationally, or if you're looking at any state, we're seeing on average, I would say, in some places worse, in some cases a little better, about half of our students across the country are not reading at grade level. So obviously the way we've been instructing as educators hasn't worked for many, many, many children. And so we need to teach in a way where all learn. It is a moral imperative. It is the social justice issue of our time. And has been for a long time. So let's seize the day today, if we haven't before, to ensure that kids are reading, because we live in an age where you cannot survive as a citizen, as a family. You can't put food on the table if you don't have this ability to read.
Right.
And it's been that way for a long time. But I think we finally have woken up to the devastation that illiteracy has, whether you want to think about that in terms of how it's affecting the GDP or the healthcare system or whatever, or more importantly to me, the human cost to that, right? So acquisition, get it accurate, this skill. Now practice it to become fluent. We're going to build fluency. But the types of instruction we're doing and the types of practice that we're doing to make this learning permanent is different in different stages. Right. So that's another whole probably another podcast.
A whole nother podcast.
A whole nother podcast. But then, of course, we're building automaticity so that when we read, we have a large sight word vocabulary. A sight word is any word that you read with instantaneously and effortlessly. You've stored it in long-term memory. In many ways, that's what separates out students who are good and poor readers, along with their background knowledge and vocabulary, and not taking from the upper ends of the rope. You have to have a large sight word vocabulary. So when you're reading, it's effortless. So you can focus on the meaning, what the author intended for you to learn, because also authors don't put everything in. They assume also that you're bringing some background knowledge with you, right? So these two parts of the rope, or the simple view of reading, they are interacting always. But as Anita Archer says, there's no comprehension strategy strong enough to overcome the fact that you can't read the words. So at the foundation, yes, you have to be able to read the words. And so since I taught kindergarten, I think about the variance in terms of contributions to reading comprehensions as a seesaw. In the early grades, it is the word recognition automaticity, that sight word vocabulary we're building, that has the largest impact on comprehension. You're not yet reading very deep and rich text, but you need to read them automatically. And then over the years, if you've learned, and this is a big if you've learned to read with accuracy and automaticity, then it's really the language comprehension strands that are the biggest impact throughout the rest of your life. So I have a brother-in-law. He is a dean of biology at a university. And when he visited, I would read his research. He recently retired. But in any event, I could decode it I had to break up some of those multisyllabic words, but I could not comprehend it. Now, I've been going to school forever. My husband thinks I will never stop going, and probably not. But in any event, I'm a pretty skilled reader, but I don't comprehend what I'm reading because I don't have the background knowledge. The vocabulary is unknown to me. The syntax, the sentence structure is a little bit different. Even the genre, honestly, read a lot of research, but it's research related to literacy. So these two are always in, right? So accuracy, automaticity, and then generalizing that. How do we take what we've taught kids so that they can transfer it and generalize it to other novel situations, not just how we taught it, but transfer it. And then when they get into adaptation, they're pretty much where I thought they were when they came into kindergarten, which they were not. They are able to adapt to novel situations or, right. So this would be if you were driving somewhere and it started snowing, probably not in Texas. That's right. That happens a lot here in Pennsylvania and when I'm in Alaska. So, but you like, I can do this. You might have to reduce your cognitive load. If you have the radio on, you turn it down or something like that. But you say, I can adjust to these novel situations because I am accurate, I'm automatic, and I can adapt.
Mhm.
That's where constructivists, in some ways, I lived in the land of generalization and adaptation with 5-year-olds. And that was just an error on my part. I didn't know better. But honestly, these 4 stages of learning, acquisition, building fluency, generalization, adaptation, apply to everything. When I was getting my doctorate and taking statistics, I can guarantee you I was in acquisition and I needed direct, explicit, systematic instructions. So whenever a learner is in acquisition, these are the types of instruction that benefit kids most. Right. And so as kids move into the adaptation, they need less explicit instruction unless they want to learn something new around what they're trying to adapt. So you can be in acquisition in one part of your learning and then be in adaptation in another. And then it's important for teachers to use data, to use assessment to inform where kids are, to know what kind of instruction they need right now for this skill, and then adapt to that. So teachers have to be adapters as well in terms of their knowledge and skill to adapt to the learners that are with them. But they shouldn't also, of course, be doing this in isolation. They should be doing this in a system of support. For example, a multi-tier system of support with leadership support, with high quality instruction material support, with family support, with community support. It really is a whole child, whole community responsibility, a whole nation's responsibility to ensure that kids are reading well.
So you
Right.
said quite a few things, and I keep
I'm
writing,
sorry.
and it's all no, 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 it's great.
Yeah, me
But I'm
too.
writing down like little keywords and trying to keep up with you. So your instructional hierarchy is acquisition, building fluency. I put automaticity fast, and then you kept saying building fluency, so I switched it to
Yeah.
building
Yeah. It is
fluency.
building. It is titled Building Fluency. Actually, what you'll see in their research oftentimes now, Herring and Eaton refer to it in Building Fluency in a seminal book that was I forgot to say, I can't believe it because it's such an honor in my life that I teach in the doctoral program. And it even has a little mark here
wanting to get into
announcing
one of
the
those
university
cohorts.
in the reading science program. And honestly, when they called me up years ago and said, would you like, I said yes within 1.5 seconds. And Dr. Stephanie Stoller is the one who called me and she said, you didn't think about it. I said, I don't have to. She said, you're busy. I said, I don't care. It's not that busy. But I am not completely 1,000,000% honored and can continue to be to teach in the reading science doctoral program at Mount St. Joseph University. But they did get that book. It's called The Fourth R. It's an amazing. The Fourth R is research. It was very difficult to get because it's out of print. But that chapter by Herring and Eaton is the seminal chapter it was based upon. And so it's acquisition, building fluency, generalization, adaptation. But some of the more recent research, you'll see it referred to as fluency, not building fluency. But Anita Archer will tell you it's building fluency.
Right. Because it's
And
a
then,
growth continuum.
yes.
Fluency
And
is
then
a growth continuum.
sometimes you'll see generalization and adaptation. They'll even collapse those because
I
they.
know that.
So maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, IDA Perspectives did a really nice series, special edition on practice.
Okay.
And there's some really great articles in there. I did one, but I'm not saying that because mine's in there. I'm saying because all the other ones are in there. And I would say Amanda Vanderhayden's and Matt Burns they're all absolutely excellent, but that's a nice primer on that. And my colleague at Mount St. Joseph University, Dr. Jamie Peevler, she has taught me so much about this topic, instruction hierarchy and cognitive load theory. She really is truly an expert. So a shout out to her as well. So
That's amazing. And the instructional hierarchy is you can be in different places because you mentioned you could be at acquisition, but you could also be at adaptation because I remember that's something you had
yes,
mentioned.
depends on the skill.
Right, right. That
Yes.
makes sense. But it's all kind of also driven by data. Is that what I
And
heard you
it is
say?
driven, it is driven by data. And also that data to me includes teacher observation
Yes.
of a very
Qualitative.
knowledgeable
Yeah.
teacher.
I
So,
think we ignore that too often.
yes. So, yeah, yes, data is important. And I'm not saying the thing is that a school that I'm working with right now, and I'm sure I'm not the one that said this originally, but we want to test as much as necessary, no more. Because anytime we're
Right.
testing, we're not teaching. And so
Right.
I think what I did before I knew better is a lot of the decisions I made were based on my instinct as a teacher and not so much on data until I knew better. Data really changed how I approach teaching. Actually, Stephanie Staller and Kate Wynn, she's a kindergarten teacher in Canada. And of course, Dr. Stephanie Staller, she's the guru here on so many things. They just wrote a book on assessment. I wrote the foreword to it. But in that foreword, I said assessment really did change my life a little bit because I stopped going with just my gut. I still know that teachers' guts and their instincts and their observations, that as teachers, we're pattern seekers and we start picking up on patterns. And then the data, typically what it does, is it confirms our gut.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should ever just go with our gut, but I also think we should honor teachers and listen to their voice because also too, we have the honor of spending time with kids all day when we're in there in a classroom. So we know the whole child and we can say, well, yes, that data point doesn't look very good, but I know the night before their puppy died or something, so
Right.
right, we know the whole child. And so we have to honor our teachers, but also we have to be looking at data to inform that. One of the most precious things we have as a teacher is time.
Yeah.
And so we want to be using that time that we do have most efficiently and effectively. And data is a helper for that, for
Well,
sure.
and another thing I liked that you had said a few minutes back is that immediate corrective feedback, because I see too many teachers not either referring to it like the next day, 2 weeks later, something like that. And then by that time, that data's kind of old.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not even accurate any longer for that student. So I kind of love that.
Right. Well, and the thing is too, there's an error correction procedure where you're not, as teachers, and you can tell because I'm doing a lot of it. I like to talk a lot, but when we're instructing, especially in acquisition, we want very clear, very concise language. And so it's just a matter of like my turn, model the correct response, your turn, have the student engage in that response. So you're kind of testing to see how they do. And then you reintroduce other things that you've taught, but you bring back the erred item again in a delayed test to see, okay, I'm delaying it, bring it back. Do you still have it? If not, it's telling me I need to go back and directly explicitly teach this, and it needs more practice here. So it's all this formative feedback that teachers are getting when they're engaged in acquisition, when they teach in a way that allows for many opportunities to respond, that allows the teacher to monitor what the student's learning. One thing when I'm working with schools and even when I'm presenting that I always try to weave in, I really do my best to walk the talk. When I present, there is a lot of interaction. I want a lot of opportunities to respond from my participants too, because I want to make sure, do I need to do something better that I haven't done well enough? Is to go back and stop doing this in their classroom. Don't have kids raising their hands. It's the default. I know we've seen it a million times. We've done it a million times, but to make the math easy for me, which I usually do, say you have 20 kids in your classroom, and what teachers do most often during the day is check for understanding. And they do that by asking a question. And invariably, what they do is they ask the question and the kids raise their hand. And the kids who raise their hands are the ones who know the answer.
Right.
The kids who raise their hands are the ones who are very proficient in English. Like, they won't raise their hands if they're not proficient in English or if they're uncertain of the answer, right? And so we're getting a very biased feedback loop. We're asking one kid, the kid says the right answer, we move on. That's a 5% evidence base in a class of 20. I want 100%. I want every single student responding because I want to know what everyone knows, not just the kids who know the answer. This is what happens like when Johnny's not in class that day, everyone's, uh-oh. We're making the achievement gap wider when we engage in those kind of practices as a teacher. We're making it wider. We're moving on based on faulty evidence. And so 100%, whiteboards, response cards, core responding, you name it. And then an individual check-in. Everybody, I'm going to point to this letter. Everyone, think about that letter in your head. I'm going to call one student and only one student. Ready? When I tap, I'm going to call a name. Amy. That way, all 20 in the room, they're looking at that letter and they're thinking about what it is because they don't know who I'm going to call. And I'm going to tap and it's going to be a student. I'm sure he's going to get the answer correct. There's no doubt about that because I don't want to embarrass a child ever. But in any event, everyone's thinking about it. They're on the cognitive hot seat. There's no cognitive hot seat with this. So no hands raised unless to ask a question. That's when you should raise your hand, but not to answer one,
Right. Perfect.
especially in acquisition.
Okay. Especially in acquisition. Okay.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Amy.
So let's talk about who we met at IDA, Tumbleweed.
Oh, I love Tumbleweed's decodable books, and they're for striving readers in grades 2 through 6. My favorite thing about them, in addition to the storylines, is the inclusion of comprehension, spelling, and vocabulary activities.
Yes, and there's no guessing because they took out the visual distractions. They still have illustrations, but not right next to the print.
And Tumbleweed is easy to implement with any core or intervention program. Their teacher guides are jam-packed with multimodal approaches.
Check them out at tumbleweedpublishing.com. Hi, this is Aimee Rodenroth, and as part of the Dyslexia Duo podcast team and owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services, I want to talk to you about my business. Our COUT-trained team offers expert virtual or in-person therapy located in Prosper, Texas, using proven dyslexia curricula like Take Flight, Build, MTA, alphabetic phonics, and reading by design. We also provide crucial independent evaluations and advocacy services. Don't wait. Empower your child today. Visit www.discovereed.com to learn more. That again is www.discovereed.com. Discovereed, covering all your dyslexia needs. Let's return to the show.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question, but I'm going to ask you a little bit later because I wanted to dig into syntax. And I know that syntax is something that you've been pretty big on your research and speaking about. So why is it so critical? What is it, first of all? Why is it so critical? And why is it underutilized sometimes or underemphasized?
I don't know. I think syntax, spelling, and handwriting, they could be the stepchildren of language. I don't know. Syntax is how we organize our language, how we structure our language, right? And so, for example, if I was in France, I would say girl pretty instead of pretty girl, right? It's how we structure our language. Syntax not only supports reading comprehension and how sentences are formed, but also it helps us write better, right? It's so interesting that you're bringing up syntax today because I don't know if you knew my dear friend, William Van Cleve.
Yes, I did.
Yes. So William was the syntax Superman. That was his superpower. He always said that. Today is the anniversary of his passing.
Oh, I don't think I
my
realized that.
gosh.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
sorry.
It's been a hard day. It's been a hard day. So,
Sorry. Well, you're carrying on his legacy.
oh no,
Mm.
there's so many other people doing such a better job than me. I would point to the work that Margie Gillis has been doing with Nancy Everhart, the book that they did with Literacy How and Syntax. Both of them have just done an incredible job. My friend Nancy Hennessy has been long invested in sentences and reading comprehension. Syntax is a doorway to comprehension, right? It's telling us how the language is structured, and it's also where kids often get lost quick. I don't think that many teachers think about syntax in terms of comprehension. But even when we think about pronoun reference or cohesive ties, where kids can easily get lost in on who is she or he or her referring to, or in a positive referring back to the noun, right? So syntax is really about teaching about comprehension, how we structure our language, and revealing that so that you can comprehend what you're reading, but also what you're writing. So start that right in kindergarten, right? When the who and the do, and then that elaboration, those sentence frames to add additional meaning, adjectives. William used to say form over function, that it's important for maybe us as teachers to know the names, but it's more important for the kids to know how. He would say, not, he would say, I can hear him saying it, don't ask what it is, ask what it does. Ask what it's doing in the sentence, right? It's modifying, it's describing, what is it doing? And so I think syntax isn't taught very much because I think of the language systems. Some of them we've been taught more readily and come more easily. All right. So phonemic awareness, absolutely essential, but not sufficient. Like all those strands of the rope, every one of those strands is essential and independently contributing, but also interdependently contributing. Right. And so some, I think, have been focused more, even in the science of reading, than the movement that's taken over. I would say that some have gotten more attention than others. And so I do think that syntax and morphology are now getting a lot more attention in terms of their role and function in language. And we only can teach what we know. So things I don't know about are the things I spend a lot of time trying to learn more about. And Nancy Hennessy has a saying, I think Nicole Puglisi, which is a colleague of hers, said, we are the sum of all our teachers. And so I'm always seeking out teachers who know more than me. And that's a lot of people. And so I'm been digging into some areas where I feel like I have weaknesses. Syntax is certainly one of those, which took me down a little bit of a spelling hole too. I've been in a spelling rabbit hole for quite a while and have loved that. And when I've learned and still have lots to learn. But that's what I think is exciting about being an educator. My Twitter handle is Live to Learn. And I truly believe that as an educator, you have a moral responsibility to continue learning as long as you're serving, right? If you're serving kids or educators, you're never done. I always say when I go to a school, like, in a year from now, I'll be sad I didn't teach you something I'll hopefully learn in this year because I'm teaching you the very best I know how at this very moment, but I am not an expert. I am a learner just like you, and that is our responsibility to continue to learn.
I love that. And I guess what I would also like to ask you is thinking about syntax and thinking about students. We just recently had on Dr. Tiffany Hogan and thinking
Oh my
about
gosh,
student.
I can't believe you even had me on after her. Oh my God.
She's
I admire her so
incredible.
much.
She's done incredible work with developmental language disorder. And I
Yes,
was
she
thinking about
has.
syntax and how that plays a role into
Yes,
some of this. So,
yes.
what are your thoughts on that and how we can maybe help support those students with their understanding of
With
language?
language, I'm sure it's just like I don't I didn't listen to it. I'm so sorry. I have been running around quite a bit, but I'll have to listen to that for sure. But I think she likely said oral language.
Yeah.
Oral language is the foundation of all literacy. If we don't understand it in spoken language, we're not going to understand it in written language. And
Mhm.
so, helping students understand our language and spoken language through our own oral language, the language we expect, that's another thing in schools I really encourage. Two things: don't raise hands and ask kids to speak in complete sentences. You speak in complete sentences. Just, I was with my Alaska schools virtually. I'm going to be there next week, but I was there with them on Friday. And I was talking to them about in your own language, be sure to use rich, robust language. So saunter to the front of the line, slink, stroll. They were reading a story about stroll. So how can we get a stroll to the front of the line? Let's stroll to the line. And what would that look like? And act that out. And all these really wonderful, rich words that we have, let's make them in their oral language. Let's have them speak them. So when they speak them, they are rehearsing for written. Both spoken language and written language are expressive forms of language. Spoken language, in the moment we hear it, and written language, it is permanent, right? We can see it, but we're rehearsing for the written, or we can be, especially in syntax, we can be rehearsing and then write it. That bridge, that oral rehearsal to written form is really critical. So I think it can't be an event. It has to be woven into the classroom all day long, all day using robust words. One of the things I listen to, I go into a classroom every single time, and it's not to be evaluative, it's just to kind of get a feel for the school and the kids in the classroom. I listen to the language of the teacher and I listen to the language of the kids. And it tells me where I might have an entry point to support their language even more, because I don't want them to be thinking about it. I'm doing syntax or I'm doing vocabulary. I'm engaging in rich language with my students all day, every day. so that they can read, write, listen, speak to their capacity, right? And so
Hmm.
just talk. You
Yeah.
you do have to pair it with initially to learn something, you have to know something. Velcro. Right. So when I would say stroll, we talked about, well, that just means to walk slowly because you can't just say, I'm going to stroll. And no, you have to say, oh, that means to walk slowly. And then you could show them. You have to
Hmm.
attach
Hmm.
unknown to a known, but then use that language. Use it all day long. Have them use it. You'll know it's happening when the kids are going home and the parents are saying to you, like, I don't know what you're doing in school. They're coming home. Oh,
This
it's the
big
same thing.
vocabulary.
Right. And so my grandkids, here's a brag, of course, but all my grandkids have very incredible oral language. Like you would not believe. I mean, I might be out at Panera with them having lunch and then we're just having lunch and talking and people around start, I always feel like, is that, what is that old commercial? E.F. Hutton or Schwab or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah. When E.F. Hutton talks,
They
people
start
were just like, yeah. Yeah.
be like, and I have a teacher friend in Alaska and they have bathed their daughter just 'cause, I mean, they love language and that's just how they act day to day. That child's language at 2 was off the charts and it was from talk. And I don't think that parents are talking to their kids as much as they used to.
Hmm. I agree.
Many people are plugged in and I don't think they understand how important it is talk and that back and forth and looking at your child and
Mhm.
speaking to them.
Yes, I actually have a therapist friend who was very good about this. She would talk to the kids about language and she would say, I'm going to saunter to the office. And she'd say, do
Yep.
you know what that means? And then she would like demonstrate it just like you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
the students I've worked with that have the most success with going through the curriculum, working through their dyslexia, the kids that have had the most success are the ones that have a bigger vocabulary. And
Yep.
it's when they can start to decode the words and they know a word that's
Then
similar
everything
to
takes off.
it. They just can.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
Yes.
just,
Mhm.
I just love that. And I wish that I could impart upon that with so many other parents that I come in contact with. And that's what I'm going to keep doing is just let's get them talking and let's get listening to them too. Ask them what is important to them and have them speak
Yeah.
to
One
you.
of the researchers, she's a cochlear implant surgeon. I don't know if you know about Dana Suskind. Do you know her work?
I know
Uh,
the last name, but I don't know
Yeah.
why.
She wrote I'm sure about the heart and Rhythm, 30 million words.
Right.
Right. So she is a cochlear implant surgeon for the deaf in Chicago. And she was amazed. When, I might not be getting this 100% correct, but when she would put in implants so they could hear, their language is a little bit delayed, but then, of course, it picks up.
mhm.
But she found out that there were children in Chicago who were hearing kids that had similar language ability. And it really, really concerned her. And so she's written a book called 30 Million Words. It's really good. It's been out for quite a while. And it's a really compelling book. I've offered it to many people and bought it for family and friends. But in any event, as a result, she started a foundation and called the 30 Million Word Initiative. I think it's what it's called. And it's for parents. It's to teach them. She has 3 T's: tune in, talk more, take turns. So it's this parent
Like
effort
a
to get,
guide.
yeah, and it's awesome. 30 Million Word Initiative, tune in, talk more, take turns. And if I ever get the honor of meeting her, I've only added a fourth. So, but it's the first one. Turn it off.
Oh, turn off the phone.
Turn off the phone, turn off the screen, turn off the TV, because you're not likely truly to tune in, talk more, take turns. And this could apply to your spouse or
Yes.
other, friends and family, but to tune in, talk more, take turns, sometimes you just have to turn it off. Right.
Mhm.
And so, and you know how things can be sticky if they're alliterative. So I'm like, ooh, so that's another thing I would share with schools and say, hey, tell your parents how important it is to talk. It's important for you to talk. This is your circle of control, your circle of influence.
Mhm.
You can control what's happening in school. So talk more, take turns, use robust language, speak in complete sentences, have your kids speak in complete sentences. But tell your parents, I don't think maybe they know how important talk is. And looking at your child and having this back and forth, it's the turn taking too that is very critical to that back and forth. And then it's typically as parents, we're like elaborating on that. If someone said ball, oh, a ball, oh yes, that was a really big red that you just saw. Or, so you're expanding on, you're doing all those SLP things. I told my husband when I finished my doctorate, I wanted to go back to be an SLP.
He's like,
no,
enough.
no. So I'm
I
an
would
SLP wannabe. Yeah.
doing all these podcasts with wonderful people like yourself has really kind of inspired me to go and pursue more education, quite frankly, and my husband's like, really? He's the same way. When are we done with this? And also, as somebody, I'm a qualified instructor, so I teach teachers in a dyslexia approach, a dyslexia curriculum, whatever. And one common comment I get is, why wasn't I taught this in college? Right?
Yes.
Because,
Well,
like,
that's
when
why that
I
one
went,
Facebook page exists.
right. Well, I love that page. I love them
Yes.
so much.
Thank you, Donna.
Why wasn't I taught this in college? And we still here in Texas now, I know there are colleges making strides like where you are, but
Yes.
not so much around us. We're kind of still in that whole language, balanced literacy stuff. So, what changes do you think we need to make at the teacher prep level? I know what I'd like to see, but I'm
Yeah.
interested in hearing what you would say.
I think like you, I think we need to support our higher ed professors so that they have this knowledge, right? So I know Mississippi was not a miracle.
The marathon, we heard about this all last week.
We'll share that. It is a marathon. It's a marathon actually that never ends.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a marathon, but it's a lifetime marathon. But I believe, because I was a national letters trainer for many years, and that they began with higher ed and they began with leadership. I think leadership might be a significant piece we're missing. In fact, Emily Hanford sometimes comes and speaks to one of our classes every year, and she then says, "What should I do next?" And every year I've been saying, "Do leaders." Like school leaders and, well, of course, professors as well, leaders in literacy, because it's a root cause. There's no doubt about that. I mean, most of what's happening across our country with letters or AIM pathways or keys to literacy or any of the professional learning that's taken across the country is in reaction to teachers not building upon what was learned in higher ed. They are unlearning and having to relearn for the most part. And so it is a core problem. It's a root cause problem. So I think always you want to treat people with kindness and assume always goodwill, that they want to do the right thing, but they just need the support. I don't think the systems have set up to support higher ed, nor our principals, or even like in teacher prep. For example, in Pennsylvania, we have some legislation around higher ed. And at Patton, we created a training for the whole state at no cost. So we're moving in the right direction. But I don't think that we provided the supports that are necessary and invested in educators all the way up, our higher ed professors, at the same time saying this is not a choice.
Right. Right.
It's not a choice, but we're going to help you. We're going to do this together. And then same thing with our principals and our teachers, that we are not engaged in creating a widget. We are creating a life. And so therefore, there isn't choice. There is support. There is a great deal of support, but also we're doing this. And so I don't think that's happened in many places. I think that many states, like mine as well, we're local control. I'm the president of the Reading League Pennsylvania here, very proud of that. And we also have a coalesced under Excel and Ed and Teach Plus, like 60 some organizations in Pennsylvania, that like Pennsylvania branch of IDA, Decoding Dyslexia Pennsylvania, Read by Fourth Pennsylvania. I mean, all these organizations, we are acting as like one advocacy group to push legislation. Pam Kastner is not a political person, but if it means I have to get involved in politics to move legislation forward, you better bet I'm going to be there. And so we are making small strides, but I always say, well, our kids are waiting.
Yeah.
Why are we not being bold? We need to be bold and kids first, adults second.
Right.
Support the adults, yes. But when you're making the decision, it should only be, is this best for the kids? Will this benefit in more students learning? Then we need to do it. We need to fund it. We need to support it. We need to maintain commitment to that. I think that teachers, I'll say it for myself for sure, I felt like I was on this perpetual treadmill. Last year's new thing, this year's new thing, next year's new thing. In order to have sustainability and equity for all kids, you need leadership. Teachers can only do so much in their own classroom and in a system. You put a good teacher in a bad system, it's going to be real hard for the good teacher.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the system wins. So the system needs to be working too. And that's higher ed That's the Department of Education's. That is the administrators in our buildings. That's the teachers. That's the parents. That's everybody. But I think that the teachers have always been the one holding the bag. It's always the teachers. Like they're supposed to be, I don't know, magicians, and I don't know. I'm in schools. I don't have the honor every day being in classrooms anymore. And it breaks my heart, to be honest with you. When I'm in there in those classrooms, I'm so happy. I'm like, cool. When I was in Vermont a couple of weeks ago, the kids say, "Can you stay?" And I wanted to say yes.
Oh,
You know, but I feel for them. I know they have a lot on their plate. So how can we support them? And that means their principal. That means their central admin. That means higher ed. That means their Department of Education. But
Mhm.
I don't think that's happening many places.
Well,
Yes.
and it's so disappointing to me when we know how desperate the reading system is right now and how poor our reading scores are right now, that this is not a
Priority.
red alarm,
Number one.
fire alarm,
Yeah,
fire
fire
alarm,
trucks,
like
ambulance.
yeah, everybody coming out to save the kids, because if we don't get it right now, we're going to continue down this path of destruction for them in their lives. I mean, we just can't have illiterate people in our world. How unfair to do to them. How badly they must feel for their lives.
Oh, I know. Well, as I said, my oldest granddaughter, and she has a privileged environment in which that she's had to suffer. And she has, believe me, she has suffered, and she suffered at her school district. And,
Mhm.
it was, let me tell you, maybe offline, it was a journey, even in these ideal situations, in a sense where her Nana at the time of most of the issues was the state lead for literacy
Yeah.
for the agency that supported kids with IEPs.
Yeah. Isn't that
It's
just
just like,
mind blowing? It's just
and
mind
so
blowing.
when that's happening, you're thinking, that's another story about how I wove in some things to support beyond my granddaughter, of course. But that's when you think, oh, it's pretty darn bad out there. But this is
Right.
what's happening. Right. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
I've got another question for you. We're getting close to the end of
Yeah.
the podcast. So I just would wonder, what is one message you wish every parent of a dyslexic child could hear?
Oh, I want them to know that their child can and will learn to read. Right. And so I'll just tell you a story, a little bit about my granddaughter with dyslexia when she had her neuropsych, which I knew what I was going to say, but she came to me and said, "Nina, I hope I'm dyslexic."
Oh,
I was like, honey, why do you hope you're dyslexic? And she said, "Then it won't be my fault."
oh,
How
So,
smart and how deep is she?
she has
My
I think the
goodness.
highest EQ, out of any child I've ever known, and the most empathetic. Honestly, my husband and I talk about that all the time. What I'm saying is, and you know this, if you have a child with dyslexia, they always think it's their fault. They always think it's their fault. And it's never their fault. It's
mhm.
our fault. We failed. The education system failed. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets. I will say, yes, language is such a gift, but some kids, I'll say this to teachers, because I had a pretty good inkling early on with her, but her language is off the charts. And when she had her neuropsych, it was literally off the charts because she had so much background knowledge. And she was like, if there was a poster child for a compensator,
Yeah.
who was using all their background knowledge and you name it, that was her. And those are the kids that all of a sudden that show up later elementary school and they're, oh, all of a sudden, well, no, it's been there all along, but the school might not have ever been testing in any way that related to nonsense word fluency or phoneme segmentation fluency or for anything like that. It was like, what level are you on? I'm guessing through ABCD books because I have lots of good language, right? And so it it is not your fault as a parent. It is not the child's fault. It is a system's fault, and they need to address it. And you have the right, your child has the right to be literate, and your public school has the responsibility to ensure that they are.
Right.
Now, what it takes to get there sometimes shouldn't be so difficult because we all know there's so many parents. I meet so many mothers and some fathers, but they quit their jobs. They became OG certified or sexual healers in some way. We all did these things to compensate. Yes, tutor my oldest, but all day long, undoing what is being done at night all day long. Right. And so they can and they will learn. And it might be a struggle, but there's no other choice. There's no other path.
Yeah.
There is no other path but to fight. And you hate to use the word fight because you always want to collaborate. It's always best to like collaborate and work together and partner. But when necessary, you have to do what is necessary for your child because it doesn't get better. It only gets worse. And we know the impact it has on the whole child, on their emotional, how they feel about themselves. It's not just an academic problem. That's why I try to explain to sometimes to families. It's not just about you don't know how to read the words. It's that you are going into a school every day, unable to do something well that others around you seem to do so easily, and you're trying so hard. And oftentimes they think you're lazy or you're stupid or, oh, you're trying, it'll come, just wait. Oh, it's going to come.
Or try some bad practices to try to
Right.
remediate.
Right. And then when that doesn't work, oh, well, whose fault is it? Oh, well, hey, we're doing this and it's not working. Well, Zig Engelman had a saying, if the student hasn't learned, the teacher has not taught. And that is the truth. If the student hasn't learned to read, it's not the student, it's you.
Yeah.
You know. And so I feel for teachers though. I think back to myself when I didn't know better. It was me, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't for a long time. I do now. So I sometimes will see some of my students, they have kids. I want to apologize to the ones that I do. When I learned this, I saw kids' faces. I did. I saw them. I went to sleep with them. I woke up with them.
Yeah.
I woke up with them. So, it's the system has to support the teachers too. It has to support the teachers. I have yet to meet one teacher in 43 years that didn't want their kids to read.
Yeah. That's
So,
amazing.
And
that's-
didn't
that's-
want to try to do the best job they could.
Yes, they're all doing the best job they could with what they have.
Mhm.
But let's help the conditions be better so they can achieve what they want.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation. Now we have lightning round questions.
Okay.
One
I'm ready.
word, short answer, top of your brain type of thing. Okay.
All right.
So there's simple, some of them. Okay. Coffee
right.
or tea?
Tea only. Never had coffee in my life.
Really?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Okay.
One word you should be using more often when talking about dyslexia.
I want to think about that one. 2 words? I will.
I like it.
What's a common misconception about either literacy or dyslexia that you hear from educators?
It's seeing things backwards,
Yeah.
transposed, that intellect and dyslexia are paired, coupled, IQ and dyslexia are coupled. They are not. So those are big misconceptions.
Yeah.
Okay. What's one non-negotiable and high quality dyslexia intervention?
Perseverance.
Nice.
You persevere until the child is reading.
Yes, absolutely. All right. One more.
Yep.
One thing schools could change tomorrow to improve literacy outcomes.
Professional learning and knowledge and practice. That's my simple view. Knowledge times practice. It's not enough for Pam Kastner to know about the simple view of reading. I have to know how to translate. So help teachers be translators. So translators.
I love it. Perfect.
This is awesome, Dr. Kastner. Thank you so
Yes.
much for your
Thank
time.
you so
You're
much.
welcome. It was my honor. Let me talk your ear off.
It
No,
was
we
so
love it.
great.
I feel like that I didn't ask a lot of questions because I was taking a lot of notes and I was trying to process, but I feel like I really want to go to Mount St. Joseph's. I'm like, I could just listen to Dr. Kastner all day.
I'm telling you, it is such an honor. Dr. Aimee Rodenroth, our dean, and Dr. Kelly Smith, and Dr. Staller, and Dr. Eisenberg, and Dr. Peedler, and oh my gosh, Dr. Morton. There's so many. Dr. Beth Corbo, a dear friend too. Everyone there. It is heaven for literacy professors. I'm not kidding you. There's just no place like it. It truly is. I pinch myself every time that I'm there, and every time I get to interact with my colleagues from Mount St. Joseph University. They are truly the best and deeply, deeply committed. It is a life commitment from every single, that we're all cut from the same cloth.
Wow. No, and it's a highly competitive cohort to try to get into.
I know it is.
But I mean, there's a
Yeah.
reason. There's a reason. It's that high
We're small and
quality.
we're small and mighty. We're small and mighty.
Sure. For sure.
Thank you.
So this is Amy,
And Melissa.
and we're the
Dyslexia Duo.
Until next time, bye bye.
The Dyslexia Duo hosts are Melissa Dean
And Aimee Rodenroth. The producer is Greg Rodenroth.
Dyslexia awareness is so important. Please share with your friends, family, and anyone who needs to know more about dyslexia.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at the Dyslexia Duo.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.